Hello, and welcome to Boring Science to Sleep, a quiet place where science becomes slow, soft, and easy to drift through. Tonight we're going to gently explore what lies beyond the boundaries of our familiar world, not to learn everything, but simply to notice, little by little, how astonishingly vast the universe becomes when you allow yourself to move through it without hurry. If you truly enjoy these calm journeys through the quiet wonders of science, you're always welcome to like this video and subscribe, only if it feels right for you. And when you're ready, I'd love to know where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. It's always comforting to imagine so many people in so many quiet places sharing the same peaceful journey beneath the same sky. Now dim the lights if you can. Perhaps let a gentle fan hum softly in the background. Settle into your favourite blanket. Allow your shoulders to become just a little heavier and let your breathing find its own slow rhythm. Tonight we begin a journey that starts here, beside our own small world, and gradually carries us farther than any human being has ever travelled. Softly, gently, together. Imagine yourself standing somewhere that cannot truly exist. There is no ground beneath your feet, no wind brushing across your face, no sound waiting to reach your ears. Around you stretches an ocean so calm that even the word silence feels too loud to describe it. Far below, almost impossibly far now, hangs a tiny blue world. Home. From this distance there are no countries, no cities, no roads winding across continents. Clouds drift lazily above deep oceans, and sunlight quietly washes across the curve of the earth before disappearing into night. You're safe. There is nowhere you need to go, nothing to solve, nothing to remember. For a little while, you simply float beside humanity's oldest dream, the desire to know what lies just a little farther away. Long before people imagined walking on distant planets or visiting other stars, there was a much quieter ambition. Could we simply send something outward? Not to return. Not to report every secret, but simply to keep going. That gentle idea became the beginning of one of humanity's longest journeys. Many decades ago, small robotic explorers slowly left Earth. They carried no passengers, no windows looked back toward home, only cameras, instruments, careful engineering, and a silent determination to travel farther than anything built before them. Among the earliest were the Pioneer spacecraft. Their name suited them beautifully. A pioneer is someone who steps into the unknown before anyone else, accepting that the path may never become easy. These spacecraft drifted away from Earth toward the giant planets, carried by careful planning and extraordinary patience. As they approached Jupiter, something remarkable happened. You might imagine a child running across a playground while briefly holding the hand of someone already moving much faster. For just a moment the child borrows a little of that motion before letting go again. The giant planet offered something similar. Its immense gravity gently bent the spacecraft's path, giving it extra speed without using additional fuel. Astronomers call this a gravity assist. But you do not need to remember the name. Instead, you can simply imagine a quiet swing through the invisible current of a great river, allowing the river itself to help carry you farther downstream. Again and again, nature quietly helped humanity travel farther than engines alone could manage. Years later came the Voyager spacecraft. Even today their names seem almost poetic. Voyager, not conqueror, not explorer. Simply one who travels. They visited enormous worlds wrapped in clouds of swirling colour. They passed Jupiter, where storms larger than our entire planet have quietly turned for centuries. They drifted beside Saturn, whose delicate rings appear almost impossibly thin despite stretching across enormous distances. Farther still they revealed Uranus, softly blue beneath distant sunlight, and Neptune, where winds race through darkness under skies no human eyes will ever directly witness. With every passing year the voyagers continued outward. The sunlight slowly became weaker. The warmth of the sun faded almost without notice. Eventually, these little machines reached a place where the influence of our star begins to soften. Around the Sun exists something rather beautiful to imagine. The Sun is constantly releasing an invisible stream of tiny particles flowing outward in every direction. For an unimaginably long distance, this gentle stream creates a vast bubble surrounding our solar system. There are no glowing walls, no invisible glass, no gate waiting to be crossed. Only a place where the Sun's quiet breath gradually becomes too faint to dominate the space between the stars. Somewhere within that immense transition, the familiar influence of home slowly gives way to the much larger ocean of our galaxy. Without ceremony, without announcement, simply, little by little, the Voyager spacecraft crossed that quiet frontier. Humanity had never reached so far before. Even now they continue their endless voyage. Their power grows weaker every year. One instrument falls silent, then another, like tiny lanterns whose light gently fades after an unimaginably long night. Yet the spacecraft themselves continue drifting, long after every signal disappears, long after no voice from Earth can reach them. They will continue moving through the darkness for thousands of years, then tens of thousands, perhaps even millions. No one knows exactly what awaits them. Maybe they will never encounter another object. Maybe one distant day they will quietly pass another star. Perhaps, in a future too distant to picture, someone or something may discover these small travellers and wonder where they came from. Or perhaps countless grains of microscopic cosmic dust, arriving one gentle collision at a time across millions of years, will slowly wear them away until nothing recognizable remains. There is something strangely comforting about that thought, not because they disappear, but because they never truly stop moving. Human curiosity, once set into motion, continues long after the people who began the journey are gone. More recently, another traveller joined this silent procession. New Horizons left Earth carrying the hopes of a new generation. It sailed past Jupiter, allowing the giant planet's gravity to quietly lend its speed before continuing toward Pluto, revealing that distant icy world in breathtaking detail for the first time. But Pluto was never the true ending. It was simply another quiet milestone along a much longer road. Beyond Pluto lie countless frozen worlds, scattered patiently through the darkness like forgotten pebbles along an endless shoreline. And beyond even those distant wanderers waits a region so vast that the edge of our solar system becomes less like a boundary and more like the fading memory of home. You may not notice exactly when familiar sunlight gives way to the deeper darkness between the stars. Perhaps that is how every great journey truly begins. Not with a single dramatic step, but with the quiet realization that home is gently becoming smaller behind you, while the universe ahead grows larger with every peaceful moment you continue to drift. The farther you drift from Earth, the quieter everything becomes. It is not the kind of quiet you notice in an empty room, or during a peaceful evening after rain. This is a different kind of silence altogether, one that stretches across unimaginable distances where even sunlight begins to feel patient, taking hours simply to arrive. Behind you, the familiar warmth of home has become only another bright point among countless others. Ahead, the great planets wait, each moving in its own slow rhythm around the sun, as they have done for billions of years. Long before any human eyes could witness these distant worlds up close, two remarkable travellers quietly began making their way toward them. They were called Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. Their names feel wonderfully simple. Not explorers seeking treasure, not conquerors claiming distant places, just voyagers, travellers, companions for a journey with no planned return. You can imagine them almost like two tiny boats leaving the safety of a familiar shoreline, carried not by waves, but by the invisible currents of gravity itself. They did not rush. They simply continued, day after day, year after year. As your own quiet journey follows their path, the first giant world slowly grows larger before you. Jupiter. Even from a great distance, it seems less like a planet and more like a moving landscape of clouds. Bands of soft cream, gentle gold, deep orange and quiet brown wrap around its enormous body like flowing ribbons carried by an endless wind. Some storms upon Jupiter have quietly circled the planet for longer than entire human civilizations have existed. One immense storm, often called the Great Red Spot, has slowly turned for centuries. It is difficult to imagine. On Earth, storms arrive and disappear within days. Here, weather seems to dream instead of changing. Nothing appears hurried. Nothing feels temporary. Voyager drifted past this enormous world, carefully photographing its cloud tops, discovering volcanoes erupting upon its moon Io, icy shells surrounding Europa, and families of moons quietly circling their giant parent like children, never wandering too far from home. Yet Jupiter offered something else besides beautiful discoveries. Its immense gravity gently bent the spacecraft's path once again. Like a graceful dancer accepting the hand of a partner before slowly spinning away, Voyager borrowed a little of Jupiter's tremendous motion and continued outward with renewed speed. No extra engine was needed, only patience, only careful timing, only the quiet cooperation between human ingenuity and the natural rhythms already written into the universe. Far beyond Jupiter, another magnificent world slowly appears, Saturn. Perhaps no planet in our solar system feels quite so gentle to imagine. Its famous rings seem solid from far away, almost like a perfectly crafted disk surrounding the planet. Yet if you could somehow drift among them, you would discover something surprisingly delicate. The rings are not one enormous circle. Instead, they are made of countless pieces of ice and stone, some no larger than grains of sand, others as large as mountains, all quietly travelling together around Saturn in an endless celestial dance. Sunlight catches these frozen fragments, turning them into soft ribbons of silver that seem almost too beautiful to belong to ordinary physics. Voyager revealed details no one had ever seen before: tiny gaps, thin braided patterns, gentle waves flowing through the rings as invisible gravity quietly shaped their movement. Even here, where everything seems still, nothing is truly motionless. Everything is always moving, just slowly enough for the universe to feel peaceful. As Saturn gradually becomes another fading light behind you, the sunlight grows softer. The warmth you once knew begins to fade, almost without your noticing. The darkness itself does not become frightening. Instead, it becomes spacious, comfortably spacious, as though the universe is gently inviting you to breathe a little more deeply. Farther still lies Uranus. Its pale blue colour feels almost dreamlike. Unlike most planets, Uranus quietly rolls around the Sun while tilted almost onto its side, giving it seasons unlike anywhere else in our planetary family. For long stretches of time, one pole remains bathed in sunlight, while the other quietly rests in darkness. Then, over many years, the pattern slowly reverses. Nothing changes quickly here. Even the seasons seem content to take their time. Voyager 2 remains the only spacecraft ever to visit this peaceful world. For a brief moment in cosmic history, humanity looked closely. Then the little spacecraft continued onward, leaving Uranus behind to return to its quiet solitude. Beyond waits Neptune, the last great planet before the familiar architecture of our solar system begins to loosen its gentle hold. Neptune appears deep blue beneath the distant sun, its atmosphere alive with powerful winds moving through astonishing cold. Although very little sunlight reaches this far, the planet possesses a surprising energy of its own. Clouds drift, storms slowly evolve. The atmosphere continues its patient work, even under the faintest daylight. Voyager 2 offered humanity its first close look before quietly continuing into the darkness beyond. By now, the two Voyager spacecraft had travelled farther than anyone had imagined when they first left Earth. But perhaps their most touching gift was not a photograph, not a scientific measurement, not even the discoveries they carried home. Hidden safely inside each Voyager rests a small golden disc, a message, not written in one language, not meant for one generation. Instead, it carries sounds from Earth, the laughter of children, the rhythm of music, greetings spoken in many human voices, the gentle whisper of wind, the sound of rain, even the heartbeat of a life itself. It is less a scientific object than a quiet introduction. A simple way of saying, we were here, not proudly, not loudly, simply, kindly. Whether anyone will ever discover that golden record remains unknown. Perhaps no one ever will. Perhaps it will drift through the Milky Way for millions of years without another eye ever seeing it. And somehow, that uncertainty makes the gesture feel even more beautiful. The record was never created because success was guaranteed. It was created because hope itself can be a meaningful thing. As you continue drifting beside these silent travellers, you begin to notice another quiet change. The sun no longer fills the sky with overwhelming brightness. Its light has become gentler now, still beautiful, still warm in its own distant way, but no longer dominant. Around it stretches an invisible region where its influence slowly reaches farther than you might ever expect. It has no glowing boundary, no sign announcing its arrival. Only a gradual transition between the familiar neighbourhood of our star and the vast ocean that waits beyond. Without even realising it, your journey has brought you close to one of the quietest frontiers humanity has ever approached. And somewhere just ahead, almost impossible to notice at first, the sun's invisible embrace begins to soften into something far larger than home itself. As your quiet journey continues, the giant planets have become little more than distant memories. Jupiter's colourful clouds have faded into a tiny point of light. Saturn's delicate rings are no longer visible. Even Neptune, the last great blue guardian of the familiar solar system, now rests somewhere far behind you, slowly circling the sun as it always has, unconcerned by the passing of centuries. Ahead there seems to be almost nothing at all. And yet this seemingly empty place is far from empty. The farther you travel, the more you begin to notice that space is filled not with objects, but with gentle influences. Some can be seen, most cannot. The sun, although now much smaller than it once appeared, is still quietly reaching outward. Not with its light alone, but with something softer, something completely invisible. Every moment, without ever becoming tired, the sun releases an endless stream of unimaginably tiny particles. You may think of them as an endless breath, a slow, gentle exhale that has continued for billions of years. This invisible breath flows in every direction, spreading farther than any planet, farther than the icy worlds beyond Neptune, farther than almost everything we usually imagine when we think about our solar system. It never rushes, it simply continues, moment after moment, century after century, like ripples expanding across a perfectly calm lake after a single pebble touches the surface. Astronomers have given this enormous invisible region a name. They call it the heliosphere. The name may sound technical at first, but the idea itself is wonderfully simple. Imagine holding a candle on a calm night. Around the flame there is a small circle of warmth. Step farther away, and that warmth slowly fades until the cool night air gently takes its place. The heliosphere is something like that, not made of warmth, but of the sun's quiet influence. There are no glowing walls surrounding it, no invisible shell, no enormous dome separating one region from another. Instead, everything changes gradually, so gradually in fact that if you were drifting through it, you might never notice exactly when one place became another. You're safe. There is nothing you need to watch for. No sudden edge appears before you. only an almost invisible transition between the familiar neighbourhood of our own star and the vast ocean that belongs to the rest of the Milky Way. Before reaching that distant boundary, your journey quietly passes another remarkable region. Far beyond Pluto stretches a vast collection of frozen worlds. Some are no larger than mountains. Others are surprisingly round, carrying enough gravity to shape themselves into distant icy spheres. Together, they form a broad family of ancient objects left behind from the earliest days of the solar system. Rather than imagining a neat row of planets ending with Pluto, it may be more peaceful to picture an enormous frozen shoreline. Countless pieces of ice and rock lie scattered across the darkness, each following its own slow path around the sun. Some complete a single journey in hundreds of years, others take much longer. They move with extraordinary patience, never hurrying, never colliding into one. Another very often, quietly preserving memories from a time when the solar system itself was still young. And farther still, so far away that even these frozen worlds begin to seem close to home, lies an even greater realm. This is often imagined as a vast cloud of icy bodies surrounding the solar system from every direction. Unlike the orderly paths of the planets, these distant travellers form a gentle sphere around the sun, almost like countless snowflakes suspended within an unimaginably large winter sky. This distant gathering is known as the Oort cloud. No spacecraft has ever reached it. No camera has ever photographed it directly. Its existence is understood through careful observation, quiet reasoning, and the graceful mathematics that help astronomers understand how long-period comets occasionally find their way toward the inner solar system. But tonight, there is no need to think about calculations. Instead, simply imagine that somewhere far beyond everything familiar, countless ancient pieces of ice rest in profound silence, waiting patiently for millions of years before beginning a slow journey toward the sun. Some may never move at all. Some may wander only once before disappearing forever into the darkness between the stars. There is something deeply calming about such patience. Nothing is expected of them. Nothing urges them onward. They simply exist. As you continue drifting, another quiet change begins to unfold. The invisible breath of the sun becomes softer, not weaker in any dramatic sense, simply more delicate. Little by little, it meets the gentle pressure of the space between the stars. Imagine two slow rivers flowing toward one another. Neither crashes into the other, neither creates towering waves. Instead, their currents gradually mingle until it becomes impossible to say where one river truly ends and the other begins. The boundary surrounding the heliosphere is very much like that. Astronomers call this gentle transition the heliopause. The name sounds far more complicated than the experience itself. It is not a wall. It is not a gate. It is simply the quiet place where the sun's invisible breath is no longer the strongest influence. Beyond this gentle frontier stretches interstellar space, the space between stars. It may sound lonely, yet it's anything but empty. Tiny particles drift there. Invisible magnetic fields quietly weave through it. Ancient light crosses it without ever becoming tired. Clouds of thin gas slowly gather over millions of years before giving birth to entirely new generations of stars. Even here, where darkness seems endless, the universe continues its patient work. In the year 2012, one of humanity's tiny travellers quietly crossed this remarkable boundary. Voyager 1 did not celebrate. There were no fireworks, no music, no triumphant announcement echoing through space. Only a small spacecraft, faithfully continuing its journey exactly as it had done every day before. Its instruments quietly noticed the changing environment. Scientists back on Earth slowly realized what had happened. Humanity had, for the first time, reached the space between the stars, not with people, not with grand machines, but with a patient little traveller no larger than an ordinary family car. Even today, Voyager continues drifting farther into that immense darkness. Its voice grows quieter with each passing year. One by one, some of its instruments have been gently switched off to preserve the little energy that remains, yet it continues, still carrying the sounds of Earth, still carrying humanity's quiet greeting, still moving toward places no human lifetime will ever see. And as you drift beside it, you may notice that the darkness no longer feels empty. Instead, it feels spacious, peaceful, almost welcoming. Because somewhere ahead, hidden within that endless sea of stars, another neighbourhood quietly waits for us to discover. The farther you drift from the familiar warmth of the sun, the more you begin to notice something remarkable. The darkness is no longer empty. One by one, tiny points of light slowly begin to separate from the great river of the Milky Way. Some appear brighter than others. Some glow with a soft golden warmth. Others shimmer with a faint reddish hue, almost as though they are quietly breathing in the darkness. For countless generations, people looked toward these distant lights and wondered whether they were forever beyond reach. Tonight, there is no need to hurry toward them. Instead, you simply allow yourself to drift, quietly crossing the invisible sea that lies between one star and the next. The distance is almost impossible to imagine. If the entire journey from Earth to the Sun could fit within a single step, then reaching even the nearest star would require an endless walk across continents, oceans and mountains that never seem to end. The universe has an extraordinary way of reminding you that even its closest neighbours remain astonishingly far apart. Yet somehow, that does not feel lonely. It feels peaceful. Each star has its own quiet space. Each shines without disturbing the others. There is room for everyone beneath this enormous sky. The first neighbouring system you encounter is known as Alpha Centauri. Rather than being a single star, it is a graceful family. Two bright stars slowly dance around one another, bound together by gravity in a rhythm that has continued for billions of years. Farther away from those two companions, moving patiently around them over an even longer timescale, is a much smaller star. Its name is Proxima Centauri. Proxima simply means the nearest. It is, as far as we currently know, the closest star to our own sun. But even the closest still feels wonderfully distant. If you could somehow travel beside a beam of light itself, moving as fast as anything in the universe is able to move, it would still take more than 4 years to make the journey from the Sun to Proxima. Light, which circles our own Earth many times in a single second, still needs years to cross this tiny corner of our galaxy. That thought is not meant to overwhelm you. Instead, perhaps it invites you to breathe a little more slowly. The universe is under no pressure to arrive anywhere. Everything unfolds in its own quiet time. Proxima is very different from our Sun. It is much smaller, much cooler. Its light carries a gentle reddish glow, rather than the warm golden colour we know so well. Astronomers call stars like this red dwarfs. The word dwarf may sound as though these stars are unimportant, but the opposite is true. Red dwarfs are believed to be the most common kind of star in the Milky Way. They burn their fuel with extraordinary patience. While larger stars live dramatic lives before eventually fading away, these little stars seem content to burn quietly for unimaginably long periods of time. Some may continue shining long after our own sun has completed its entire life. There is something comforting about such steady companions. Not brilliant, not loud, simply faithful, quietly glowing through ages that no human mind can fully picture. Around Proxima, astronomers have discovered planets. One of them circles at just the right distance where temperatures might allow liquid water to exist under suitable conditions. No one knows exactly what its surface looks like. Perhaps rocky mountains rest beneath crimson skies. Perhaps deep oceans quietly reflect a dim red sun. Perhaps nothing more than silent stone stretches from horizon to horizon. For now, these worlds remain gentle mysteries, and perhaps mysteries are most beautiful when they are allowed to remain mysteries for a while. As your peaceful journey continues, another small star quietly comes into view. Ross 128. Its name sounds almost like a page number in an old book, simple and unassuming. Yet this quiet little star has become especially interesting to astronomers. Unlike many red dwarfs, which can occasionally release powerful bursts of energy, Ross 128 appears unusually calm. Its light changes very gently. Its behavior feels remarkably peaceful. If stars possessed personalities, this one might be described as patient. Around it, too, there may be worlds that quietly circle through the darkness. Perhaps somewhere beneath another crimson sunrise, distant landscapes wait in silence, untouched by footsteps, untouched by voices, simply existing beneath an ancient sky. Not far away, at least by the generous standards of our galaxy, lies another quiet neighbour known as Luyten's star. It is another small red star, another reminder that the universe does not rely only upon brilliant giants to fill its vastness with light. Sometimes the smallest lights endure the longest. Sometimes the quietest voices remain long after louder ones have faded. There is a gentle lesson hidden there. As you drift among these nearby stars, you may notice that none of them resembles the bright points you see from Earth's surface. Up close, every star becomes an individual place with its own story, its own family of worlds, its own invisible currents of gravity, its own long history unfolding at an almost unimaginable pace. You begin to understand that our sun is not unusual. It is simply one neighbour among hundreds of billions of neighbours spread across a galaxy so vast that even these closest stars are separated by distances almost beyond comprehension. And yet, despite those enormous distances, they're all quietly connected. Each belongs to the same graceful spiral of the Milky Way. Each slowly circles the galactic centre, carried by gravity in a dance so slow that a single orbit takes hundreds of millions of years. No star hurries, no star competes. Each simply follows its path. As you continue drifting, another group of stars waits somewhere ahead. Some shine with brilliant white light. Others are surrounded by delicate rings of dust where new worlds may still be forming. And one, already growing old, quietly reminds us that even stars have their own gentle seasons of life. But there is no need to rush toward them. For now, you simply remain here, floating peacefully among the nearest lights beyond our own sun, discovering that even the closest corners of the universe are far more spacious and far more beautiful than they first appeared. By now, the stars around you no longer feel like distant decorations scattered across the night. They have become places. Each one has its own quiet character. Each one carries its own rhythm. Some burn gently for ages beyond imagination, while others live brighter, faster lives, filling their surroundings with a different kind of light. As your peaceful journey continues, another familiar point of light slowly grows brighter ahead. From Earth, people have looked toward this star for thousands of years. It shines clearly during the warm evenings of northern summers, one bright jewel among countless others. Its name is Altair. There is something wonderfully energetic about Altair, although you would never describe it as hurried. Unlike our sun, which turns with quiet patience, Altair spins remarkably quickly. If you could somehow watch it over time, you would notice that its entire surface completes a full rotation in only a matter of hours rather than weeks. That rapid turning gently changes its shape. Instead of being almost perfectly round, Altair has become slightly wider around its middle, almost as though the star is stretching outward while it slowly twirls through space. Imagine shaping a ball of soft clay with your hands. At first it is nearly spherical, then you gently begin to spin it. Little by little, the middle becomes broader while the top and bottom grow slightly flatter. Altair has quietly done something similar, not because anyone shaped it, but because gravity and motion have spent millions of years finding a peaceful balance together. Even something as enormous as a star responds to gentle forces given enough time. The universe rarely needs to rush. Patience accomplishes extraordinary things. As beautiful as Altair appears, it reminds you that no two stars are truly identical. Just as every tree grows with its own branches and every river follows its own winding path, every star develops its own personality through the quiet influences of mass, age, motion, and time. Some become calm and steady. Some shine brilliantly. Some rotate almost lazily. Others, like Altair, quietly dance with graceful speed. As Altair slowly drifts behind you, another luminous star emerges from the darkness. Its light seems calm, almost peaceful. Its name is Fomalhaut. For many years, astronomers found themselves especially fascinated by this distant sun, not only because of the star itself, but because of what quietly surrounds it. Far from Fomalhaut stretches an enormous ring of tiny fragments. Dust, ice, ancient pieces of rock, countless small particles gently circling their parent star. From a great distance, this broad ring almost resembles the faint outline of Saturn's famous rings, but the resemblance is only an illusion. Saturn's rings surround a planet. Fomalhaut's dusty ring surrounds an entire star. The scale is almost beyond imagination. If you could drift gently through that distant cloud, you would not find a smooth ribbon floating neatly through space. Instead, you would discover countless, tiny grains, each quietly following its own path around the star. Some are no larger than grains of sand. Others are larger pieces of ancient ice and stone. Together they create a graceful halo stretching across enormous distances. It is easy to imagine this place as untidy, but perhaps it is better imagined as unfinished, like a quiet artist's studio after a day's work. The materials are already there. The shapes have begun to emerge. Time simply has more work to do. Astronomers believe that many stars begin life surrounded by clouds like these. Within those quiet rivers of dust, tiny particles slowly meet. Some gently cling together, others separate again. Over immense stretches of time, little pieces become larger ones. Small stones become great mountains. Mountains become worlds. Planets are not built in moments. They are assembled through patience, one tiny meeting after another, one gentle collision after another, until eventually something large enough to become a new world quietly appears. It is a comforting thought. Even planets begin as almost invisible grains drifting peacefully through darkness. Perhaps that is one of the universe's favourite ways of creating beauty. Not suddenly, but gradually. Always gradually. As you continue drifting through this quiet neighbourhood, you begin to notice something deeper than the stars themselves. No two stellar families are alike. Around one star may orbit rocky worlds. Around another, giant planets wrapped in clouds. Around another, only dust still waiting for its future. Some systems are crowded, others are surprisingly quiet. Some may already contain worlds unlike anything humanity has ever imagined. Others may never grow beyond scattered fragments circling an ancient sun. There is no single design repeated everywhere. The universe seems to enjoy gentle variety, like a forest where no two leaves are exactly alike, yet every tree still belongs to the same peaceful landscape. You may even begin thinking about our own solar system differently. For so long, it felt unique, the only example we truly knew. But drifting among these neighbouring stars quietly changes that feeling. The sun is simply one storyteller among countless others. Every neighbouring star is writing its own quiet history. Every system has experienced different beginnings, different seasons, different futures still waiting to unfold. Perhaps somewhere around one of these distant stars, another small blue world circles beneath soft clouds. Perhaps frozen oceans quietly reflect a pale sunrise. Perhaps silent deserts stretch beneath unfamiliar constellations. Or perhaps no life has ever stirred there at all. The beautiful truth is that we do not yet know, and not knowing leaves room for wonder. Wonder does not ask for immediate answers. It simply invites you to keep looking gently, to remain curious without becoming impatient. Ahead, another brilliant light quietly waits. Unlike the peaceful stars you've just visited, this one has reached a very different season of its existence. Its gentle balance is slowly beginning to change. Its light carries the quiet story of a star growing old, reminding us that even the brightest suns are travelers through time. And as you drift toward that ancient crimson glow, the universe prepares to tell another slow and beautiful chapter in the life of the stars themselves. The farther you wander among the stars, the more they begin to resemble living stories rather than distant points of light. Some are young, some are steady, some are quietly building new worlds from drifting clouds of dust, and some have reached a much later season of their lives, where every passing million years gently reshapes their appearance, almost too slowly for anyone to notice. Tonight you find yourself drifting toward one of these elder stars. Long before telescopes existed, people looked up into the night and noticed a warm amber light shining in the northern sky. Its name is Arcturus. Unlike the quiet red dwarf stars you recently visited, Arcturus has already begun the long process of growing old. If stars could breathe, you might imagine Arcturus taking one long, peaceful inhale that has lasted for millions of years. Little by little it has expanded, not suddenly, not dramatically, simply through the quiet passage of time. Its outer layers have slowly drifted farther from its centre, making the star far larger than it once was. If our own sun could somehow stand beside Arcturus, it would seem modest by comparison. Yet there was a time, billions of years ago, when Arcturus may have looked surprisingly ordinary. That gentle thought reminds you of something comforting. Even the grandest things often begin in simple ways. The towering tree was once a tiny seed. The broad river began as a quiet stream. And stars, too, slowly become something greater through patience rather than speed. Arcturus glows with a warm golden-orange light. It feels softer than the brilliant white stars you have already passed. Its light seems almost welcoming, as though it has settled comfortably into this later chapter of its existence. Astronomers often look toward Arcturus when imagining the distant future of our own sun. Not because they are exactly the same, but because Arcturus offers a gentle glimpse of what an aging star can become. One unimaginably distant day, billions of years from now, our own sun will begin changing as well. Its quiet balance will slowly shift. Its outer layers will gradually expand. The familiar yellow star that has warmed Earth for so long will become much larger, glowing with a softer reddish light. This transformation will not happen within human history, not within civilizations, not even within the entire lifetime of our species as we know it today. It belongs to a future so distant that it almost becomes a peaceful thought rather than a concern. There is nothing to fear in imagining it, only another reminder that change is one of the universe's gentlest habits. Nothing remains exactly the same forever. Not mountains, not oceans, not galaxies, not even stars. As Arcturus slowly fades behind you, another crimson glow begins to emerge from the darkness. This light feels different, deeper, richer, almost like the warm glow of a fire seen from very far away on a quiet winter evening. This is Betelgeuse. For countless generations, people have noticed this remarkable star resting upon the shoulder of the familiar constellation Orion. Even without a telescope, Its reddish colour is easy to recognise. Unlike many of the quieter stars you've already visited, Betelgeuse is truly enormous. If it could somehow replace our own Sun, its outer atmosphere would stretch so far that several of the inner planets would find themselves inside the star itself. Fortunately, stars never exchange places. The universe prefers a gentler order, so Betelgeuse quietly lives out its life many hundreds of light years away, where its magnificent size can be admired without ever disturbing our peaceful corner of the galaxy. Yet despite its enormous scale, Betelgeuse is surprisingly delicate. Its outer layers rise and fall almost like the slow breathing of a sleeping giant. Great currents of hot gas gently move upward before cooling and sinking again, repeating the process over and over across vast stretches of time. Its surface is not smooth. It shifts, it ripples, it quietly rearranges itself. In the year 2019, something unusual happened. Astronomers around the world noticed that Betelgeuse had begun growing noticeably dimmer. Night after night, its familiar glow faded. Many people wondered whether they might soon witness one of the rarest events in astronomy. Could this giant star be approaching the end of its life? For a while, no one knew. The mystery itself became part of the story. Eventually, careful observation suggested a gentler explanation. Betelgeuse had likely released an enormous cloud of dust into space. As the dust drifted between the star and Earth, it softly blocked part of its light, making the star appear dimmer than usual. Little by little, its familiar brightness returned. There is something strangely beautiful about that event. Even astronomers, with all their remarkable instruments and careful measurements, sometimes find themselves quietly waiting for the universe to reveal its answer. Not every mystery disappears immediately. Some simply ask for patience. One day, perhaps tomorrow by cosmic standards, or perhaps 100,000 years from now, Betelgeuse will reach the end of its long journey. Its centre will no longer be able to support the enormous weight above it. The star will change rapidly. For a brief time, it will shine with extraordinary brilliance before scattering much of its material outward into the galaxy. That future explosion may sound dramatic, but from here, drifting peacefully through imagination, it is simply another step in an endless cycle. The elements carried inside Betelgeuse today will not disappear. They will travel outward. They may one day become part of new clouds of gas. Those clouds may slowly gather into new stars. Around those stars, new planets may quietly form, perhaps distant oceans, perhaps mountains, perhaps forests beneath unfamiliar skies. The universe wastes very little. Instead, it gently transforms, again and again. As you float between Arcturus and Betelgeuse, you begin noticing that stars are not permanent lanterns hung forever in the darkness. They are travellers through time. Each follows its own quiet path from birth to maturity, from maturity to old age, and eventually into something entirely new. Some make this journey slowly, others move more quickly, but all of them participate in the same peaceful rhythm that has shaped the Milky Way for billions of years. And somewhere ahead, beyond these aging giants, lies the beginning of that rhythm itself, a place where stars are still being born, where gentle clouds gather in silence before igniting their first quiet light. Perhaps, before understanding how stars eventually say goodbye, it is worth returning to the beginning, to discover how they first learned to shine. After spending time beside stars that have grown old, it feels natural to wonder about something even quieter. Where did they begin? Every ancient giant, every gentle red dwarf, every brilliant white star, every warm golden sun. Long before they became lights in the darkness, they all shared something remarkably simple. They began as clouds, not clouds like those drifting above mountains on Earth, not soft white shapes floating through a blue afternoon sky. These are clouds so enormous that words like large or vast hardly seem to fit. They stretch across distances so immense that even light, moving faster than anything else in the universe, needs many years to travel from one side to the other. Yet despite their unimaginable size, these clouds are surprisingly delicate. They are made mostly of the simplest element in the universe, hydrogen, the same humble element that quietly fills much of the cosmos. Mixed among it are tiny amounts of helium, along with gentle traces of carbon, oxygen, silicon, iron, and many other elements that were patiently created inside stars that lived long before our own sun was ever born. There is something comforting about that thought. Long before new stars begin to shine, they are already carrying tiny gifts from older generations. Nothing truly begins alone. The universe remembers. Astronomers sometimes call these enormous regions stellar nurseries because they are places where new stars are quietly born. Perhaps another image feels even softer. Imagine a winter valley before sunrise. Mist rests everywhere. Nothing appears to be moving. Everything seems perfectly still. Yet hidden inside that peaceful fog, countless tiny droplets are slowly gathering together. No one notices the change from one moment to the next, but given enough time, those invisible changes become something entirely new. The great clouds between the stars behave in much the same way. For millions of years, almost nothing seems to happen. The cloud simply drifts, it breathes, it waits. But gravity is always there. Gravity is wonderfully patient. It never pushes, it never hurries. It simply whispers. Little by little, tiny regions inside the cloud begin gathering more material than the spaces around them. A little more gas here, a little more dust there. As more matter quietly gathers, gravity becomes just a little stronger. That stronger gravity gently attracts even more material. The process repeats itself again, and again, and again. There is no sudden beginning, no great explosion announcing that a star has arrived, only an endless conversation between gravity and time. As the cloud slowly becomes denser, something remarkable begins to happen. The gentle weight of all that gathering gas quietly presses inward. Imagine wrapping yourself beneath a warm blanket on a cool evening. The blanket does not push sharply against you. Its warmth comes from a gentle embrace. Deep inside these growing clouds, gravity creates a similar embrace. The gas becomes warmer, not because of fire, not because anything is burning, simply because it is being gathered closer together. The warmth increases so gradually that millions of years pass almost unnoticed. Eventually, a small glowing object begins forming at the heart of the cloud. It is not quite a star yet, it is more like a promise. Astronomers sometimes call this early stage a protostar. The word simply means before the star. Perhaps it is easier to imagine it as the first quiet candle before the flame has fully awakened. Around this young object, the remaining cloud begins to flatten into a broad spinning disk. Within that quiet circle of dust and gas, countless tiny particles gently brush against one another. Some drift apart, others remain together. Almost without realizing it, the earliest ingredients of future planets have already begun gathering around their newborn sun. A family is quietly forming. Then, after an unimaginably long wait, something changes deep inside the growing star. The pressure becomes extraordinary. The temperature quietly climbs until the smallest building blocks of hydrogen begin joining together. In doing so, they release light and warmth. This process has a scientific name called nuclear fusion, but tonight you do not need to remember those words. Instead, perhaps imagine something much gentler. Imagine countless tiny drops of morning dew slowly joining together until they become a single shining pearl resting on a leaf. Individually, each drop seems almost invisible. Together they create something that catches the first light of dawn. Deep inside every star, unimaginably small particles quietly join together, and in doing so they release the light that will travel across the galaxy for millions of years. A star has learned to shine, not because someone lit it, but because the universe patiently gathered enough time, enough gravity, and enough quiet persistence into one place. From that moment forward, every star begins writing its own story. Some remain small. They burn their fuel slowly, carefully, almost conservatively. They may continue glowing long after many larger stars have already faded away. Others begin life carrying far more material. These stars burn much brighter. Their lives are shorter, but dazzling. They illuminate enormous regions of space before eventually returning much of their material back to the galaxy. Neither path is better. Neither is more important. A small red dwarf quietly glowing for trillions of years contributes to the universe just as surely as a brilliant giant whose lifetime is far shorter. The universe seems to appreciate every kind of light. As you drift through one of these peaceful stellar nurseries, you notice that stars are not born one by one. They arrive together. Entire families emerge from the same cloud. Brothers and sisters of light, each beginning their journey at nearly the same moment, yet each following a slightly different path as countless millions of years quietly unfold. Perhaps our own sun was born alongside many companions long ago. Those neighbouring stars have since continued their own journeys around the Milky Way, slowly drifting farther apart until they became strangers beneath different skies, the family scattered. But the shared beginning remains written into the history of every one of them. There is something deeply human about that thought. Children grow, families spread across distant places, lives quietly unfold in different directions. Yet somewhere beneath every new experience remains the memory of a common beginning. The universe, it seems, enjoys repeating familiar patterns on every scale. As the gentle cloud around you slowly thins, hundreds of newborn stars begin illuminating the surrounding darkness. Some glow softly blue, some appear golden, others shimmer with a gentle reddish warmth. Together they resemble thousands of tiny lanterns appearing one after another as evening slowly settles across a peaceful valley. It is difficult to say where one story ends and another begins. Perhaps that is exactly the point. Every star you have visited, every planet you have imagined, every distant galaxy still waiting ahead, all began in places like this: quiet clouds, patient gravity, invisible time, and a light that learned, little by little, how to shine. Somewhere beyond these newborn families there are worlds that never remained with the stars that gave them life. They wander alone through the darkness, carrying no sunrise and no sunset, yet continuing their endless journey with the same quiet patience that has accompanied us since we first left Earth. As the soft glow of the stellar nursery gradually fades behind you, something begins to change once again. The young stars, which only moments ago seemed to fill the darkness with new light, slowly become more distant. Their gentle warmth grows fainter. The familiar feeling of belonging to a stellar family quietly slips away. Ahead lies another kind of world, a world unlike the planets we know. A world with no sunrise, no sunset, no parent star waiting beyond the horizon. Only silence, only darkness, only an endless journey through the Milky Way. Astronomers call these wandering bodies rogue planets. The name may sound adventurous, almost as though these worlds chose to leave home. But perhaps another image feels softer. Imagine an autumn leaf carried away from its tree by a quiet breeze. The leaf is not running away. It is simply following a different path. Rogue planets may be something like that. Some were once ordinary members of peaceful planetary families. Long ago they circled young stars just as Earth quietly circles the sun today. They experienced regular years, steady orbits, a familiar rhythm. Then, Over immense stretches of time, gravity slowly reshaped their future. Perhaps another giant planet drifted a little too close. Perhaps several worlds gently pulled on one another for millions of years. Each tiny movement was almost impossible to notice. Yet gravity never forgets. It quietly adds every small influence together. Eventually, one delicate balance gives way to another. The planet begins wandering farther from its star. Its path grows longer. Its orbit becomes increasingly stretched. Until, one quiet day, the star's gentle embrace is no longer strong enough to hold it. No explosion marks the moment. No dramatic farewell fills the sky. The planet simply continues forward. Only now, it no longer circles home. It drifts into the immense darkness between the stars. Not all rogue planets begin this way. Some may never have belonged to a star at all. Within the enormous clouds where stars are born, gravity sometimes gathers enough material to create an object too large to be an ordinary planet, yet too small to become a shining star. These quiet worlds are born alone. They begin life without ever seeing a sunrise, without ever belonging to a solar system. From their very first moments, they know only the gentle darkness between the stars. There is something unexpectedly peaceful about that thought. The universe does not insist that every world follow the same story. Some belong to great families. Others travel quietly by themselves. Both paths seem equally welcome. As you drift beside one of these lonely planets, the darkness appears complete. No golden sunlight reaches its frozen landscape. No bright daytime sky stretches overhead. If you stood upon its surface, you might never see a sunrise for your entire existence. The stars above would remain steady companions, quietly shining across an eternal night. At first, such a place might seem completely lifeless. Without sunlight, surely nothing could remain warm. Nothing could continue changing. Nothing could survive. And yet the universe often whispers rather than shouts. Even without a nearby star, a planet does not instantly become completely cold. Deep beneath its surface, warmth may still linger. Some comes from the slow fading heat left behind when the planet first formed. Some comes from the gentle decay of naturally occurring radioactive elements hidden within its rocky interior. Neither source produces dramatic heat, but over unimaginably long periods, together they may provide enough warmth to keep hidden layers beneath the surface from freezing completely. Imagine a winter lake. Its surface has become solid ice. Snow quietly covers everything. The world appears perfectly frozen. Yet beneath the ice, dark water still moves gently. The deepest parts remain sheltered from the cold air above. A rogue planet may be something like that. Its surface could be silent and frozen beyond imagination. But far below, hidden oceans may quietly endure. No sunlight reaches them. No stars reflect upon their waters. Yet they continue existing, unseen by anyone. Some scientists have gently wondered whether places like these could, under the right conditions, provide quiet homes for simple forms of life. No one knows. There is no evidence that such life exists. There is also no evidence proving that it cannot. For now, the question remains beautifully unanswered. Sometimes the universe offers possibilities rather than conclusions. Perhaps that uncertainty is one of its greatest gifts. It leaves room for wonder. Finding a rogue planet is remarkably difficult. Unlike stars, these worlds produce almost no visible light of their own. They move silently through the darkness, almost invisible against the enormous backdrop of the galaxy. Yet occasionally, they reveal themselves in an extraordinary way. Imagine watching the gentle glow of a distant lantern across a quiet field. Now, imagine someone slowly walking between you and that lantern. For just a brief moment, the light appears slightly brighter and gently distorted before returning to normal. Something similar can happen in space. When a rogue planet quietly passes in front of a much more distant star, its gravity gently bends the starlight. The distant light briefly changes, almost as though the invisible planet has softly announced its presence before continuing its silent journey. Astronomers patiently watch for these rare moments, not because rogue planets wish to be found, simply because gravity leaves delicate fingerprints wherever it travels. The more carefully we observe, the more wandering worlds we seem to discover. Some astronomers even suspect that rogue planets may be astonishingly common. Perhaps there are billions quietly drifting through the Milky Way. Perhaps they outnumber the stars themselves. If that thought feels surprising, allow it to settle gently rather than all at once. Imagine standing on a quiet beach at night. You notice the waves, you notice the moon, but beneath the surface of the sea, countless unseen currents quietly move in every direction. The galaxy may be much the same. Visible stars capture our attention, yet between them, unseen worlds may wander patiently through the darkness, carrying frozen mountains, hidden oceans, and stories no telescope has yet uncovered. As you continue floating beside one of these solitary travellers, you begin to notice that loneliness is not always emptiness. The planet has no sunrise, yet it still has gravity. It still has seasons of change, however subtle they may be. It still carries its own history. It still belongs to the galaxy. Even without a star to call home, it remains part of something unimaginably vast. And perhaps that is quietly comforting. Not every journey requires a destination. Not every traveller needs to follow a familiar path. Some simply continue drifting, carried by gravity through the immense stillness of the Milky Way. Ahead, that vast galaxy slowly begins revealing itself, not merely as a scattering of distant lights, but as the great spiral home that has quietly guided every star, every wandering planet, and every peaceful journey you have taken so far. The wandering planet slowly disappears into the darkness behind you. Its silent journey continues without interruption, carrying its frozen mountains and hidden stories through the endless night. For a little while, you simply watch it drift away until it becomes impossible to distinguish from the countless shadows surrounding it. Then, almost without noticing, your attention begins to change. Until now, you have been visiting individual places, a single spacecraft, one neighbouring star, one lonely planet, one quiet corner after another. But now your view begins to widen. Instead of looking at individual lights, you begin seeing the great city that all those lights quietly call home, the Milky Way. From Earth's surface, people have admired it for thousands of years. On clear nights, far away from bright cities, a pale river of light stretches gently across the sky. It looks almost like a veil of mist, soft, dreamlike, nearly transparent. Ancient civilizations imagined it as a heavenly river, a pathway for spirits, spilled milk across the sky, or a bridge connecting distant worlds. None of those ideas were scientifically correct, yet each one captured something that still feels true. The Milky Way invites wonder. Only much later did humanity begin to understand what that glowing band truly is. It is not a cloud. It is not a ribbon. It is not a thin layer of light painted across the heavens. It is the combined glow of hundreds of billions of stars, so distant and so numerous that, from our small place inside the galaxy, they blend together into one gentle stream of light. Imagine standing deep inside an enormous forest. Trees surround you in every direction. Nearby trunks are easy to see, but farther away, Thousands upon thousands of branches overlap until they become a soft green haze stretching across the horizon. The Milky Way is something like that. You're not looking at the forest, you're already standing inside it. That simple realization quietly changes everything. For much of human history, people wondered where the Milky Way was. Now you understand something wonderfully different. You've never been outside it. Earth, the Sun, the Voyager spacecraft, the nearby stars, the wandering rogue planets. Every one of them belongs to this immense galactic home. You have not been leaving home at all. You have simply been exploring different neighborhoods within it. As your journey gently continues, the shape of the galaxy slowly reveals itself. If you could somehow rise far above it, you would see broad spiral arms slowly curving outward from a bright central region. They resemble the graceful swirl of cream stirred into warm tea, not perfectly symmetrical, not rigid. Instead, each arm gently twists through space with quiet elegance. Within those spirals lie immense clouds of gas, glowing nebulae where new stars continue to form, ancient clusters that have travelled together for billions of years, and countless planetary systems quietly circling their own suns. Our own sun lives within one of the galaxy's smaller spiral arms. Astronomers call this region the Orion Arm. Rather than resting near the crowded centre, we occupy a peaceful suburb. It is a remarkably comfortable place to live, far enough from the busiest regions to avoid frequent cosmic disturbances, yet close enough to enjoy the rich beauty of the Milky Way stretching overhead each night. Perhaps that is one reason life on Earth has enjoyed such a long period of stability. Sometimes quiet neighbourhoods are wonderful places to grow. As you continue drifting upward in imagination, the galaxy grows even larger beneath you. Stars no longer appear as individual points. Instead, they become soft rivers of light, weaving through enormous clouds of darkness. Those darker regions are not empty. They are vast clouds of gas and dust gently blocking some of the starlight behind them. Like morning fog drifting through a valley, they quietly reshape what distant observers can see. The galaxy is full of layers: light, shadow, cloud, stars, everything woven together into one patient tapestry. At the very heart of the Milky Way lies something extraordinary, not because it is loud, not because it demands attention, but because it quietly holds the entire inner galaxy together. Astronomers call this mysterious object Sagittarius a star. Despite the name, it is not an ordinary star. It is a supermassive black hole, resting silently at the centre of our galaxy. The phrase black hole often sounds frightening. Stories sometimes describe them as enormous cosmic vacuum cleaners, endlessly pulling everything toward destruction. Reality is much gentler. Sagittarius, a star, does not roam across the galaxy collecting stars like a great hunter. It simply remains where it has always been. The stars near the galactic centre quietly orbit around it, much as planets peacefully orbit the sun. Gravity guides their paths. Nothing more, nothing less. If our own sun were somehow replaced by a black hole with exactly the same mass, Earth would continue following almost the same orbit. The darkness would become overwhelming because the sunlight would disappear, but gravity itself would remain remarkably familiar. Perhaps that thought softens one of the greatest misunderstandings about black holes. They are not cosmic monsters. They are simply another way the universe quietly arranges matter. Even the great centre of our galaxy participates in the same gentle dance of gravity that has accompanied us since we first left Earth. And the Milky Way itself is moving as well, not spinning like a solid wheel. Instead, every star follows its own long orbit around the galactic centre. Our own sun has been making this slow journey for its entire existence. Completing just one orbit takes hundreds of millions of years. When dinosaurs walked across Earth, the sun occupied an entirely different position within the galaxy. Since then, it has continued its patient path, never hurrying, never pausing. One quiet circle after another. As you look across this magnificent spiral, you begin noticing something deeply comforting. The Milky Way is unimaginably large, yet it is not chaotic. Every star follows its own graceful path. Every cloud slowly evolves. Every wandering planet drifts through its own quiet darkness. Nothing appears rushed. Everything belongs. You too belong to this immense story. Your world circles an ordinary star. That star quietly circles the centre of the Milky Way. And the Milky Way itself continues its own gentle journey through a universe far larger still. Somewhere beyond the graceful edge of this great spiral, other galaxies quietly shine across the darkness. Some resemble our own. Others have grown into entirely different shapes. Each carries billions of stars, countless worlds, and histories unfolding with the same quiet patience. Without realizing it, your journey is already preparing to leave one galaxy behind and gently enter the company of many others. As the magnificent spiral of the Milky Way slowly settles behind you, something remarkable begins to happen. For the first time since leaving Earth, your home no longer feels like the largest thing in view. Until now, every journey has taken place inside a single galaxy. Every spacecraft, every neighbouring star, every wandering planet, every quiet cloud where stars are born. All of them belong to one immense island of light. Now your view widens once again. The darkness ahead is no longer empty. It is filled with other islands, each one glowing softly across an ocean so vast that even galaxies seem wonderfully small. Imagine standing on a quiet shoreline just before dawn. Far beyond the water, faint lights appear on distant islands. You cannot hear them. You cannot see the people who might live there. Yet their gentle glow quietly reminds you that you are not alone. The universe is much like that. Galaxies are not scattered randomly through space. They gather in peaceful families, each quietly keeping company with its neighbours while still separated by extraordinary distances. The nearest great companion to our own Milky Way slowly comes into view. It is known as Andromeda. For thousands of years, people have looked toward this faint patch of light without knowing what it truly was. To the unaided eye, it appears as a soft mist resting among the stars. Small, gentle, almost fragile. Yet appearances can be wonderfully misleading. That faint glow is an entire galaxy. Inside it shine hundreds of billions of stars. Around many of those stars, planets almost certainly circle in silence. Clouds of gas patiently give birth to new generations of suns. Ancient stars quietly grow old. Black holes rest at the centres of stellar cities. Everything you have discovered within the Milky Way is happening there as well, only much farther away. As you drift closer in imagination, Andromeda begins revealing graceful spiral arms, very much like those of our own galaxy. At first glance, they seem almost like twins. But as with all siblings, quiet differences gradually appear. Its central region is somewhat larger. Its structure carries its own unique history. Every galaxy remembers the countless encounters and gentle transformations that shaped it over billions of years. Some astronomers have even discovered that the very heart of Andromeda is more intricate than it first appears. Instead of one simple concentration of stars, careful observations suggest an unusually complex central region, almost as though several quiet stories have become woven together over immense stretches of time. The universe rarely builds anything in perfect simplicity. It prefers gentle layers, one history resting quietly upon another. Around Andromeda travel many much smaller companions. Tiny dwarf galaxies quietly orbit their giant neighbour, much as small moons circle great planets. Some have remained faithful companions for billions of years. Others may one day slowly merge into the larger galaxy, contributing their stars without drama or violence. To the universe, even enormous change often happens patiently. Farther away, another graceful spiral quietly emerges from the darkness. The Triangulum Galaxy. Smaller than both the Milky Way and Andromeda, it possesses a peaceful elegance all its own. Its spiral arms appear open and delicate, like ribbons slowly unfolding across the darkness. Within one of those arms lies an extraordinary region where countless young stars continue appearing together. It is one of the largest known stellar nurseries in our nearby galactic neighbourhood. Imagine standing on a hillside overlooking a valley filled with thousands of lanterns. Some have only just been lit. Others have glowed quietly for many years. Still others wait patiently for their own light to appear. That distant region inside Triangulum is something like such a valley, where new stars continue joining the universe, one quiet beginning at a time. The Milky Way, Andromeda, Triangulum. Together with dozens of smaller galaxies, they belong to a peaceful gathering astronomers called the Local Group. The name sounds wonderfully modest. There's nothing grand or dramatic about it. Simply a local neighbourhood, a family of galaxies quietly travelling together through the larger universe. Perhaps it is comforting that even on the scale of galaxies, the universe still forms neighbourhoods. Nothing exists entirely alone. Every great system belongs to something larger. As you gently widen your view, the Local Group begins resembling a small village scattered across an enormous landscape. Each galaxy keeps its own identity. Each carries its own history. Yet all are connected through the quiet influence of gravity. Gravity, once again, becomes the invisible thread holding everything together. You have already watched it guide planets around stars. You have watched it shape newborn suns inside peaceful clouds. You have watched it keep stars moving through the Milky Way. Now you see that same gentle force quietly guiding entire galaxies. The pattern repeats itself. Only the scale has changed. There is another remarkable thought waiting here. The Milky Way and Andromeda are slowly moving toward one another. Not quickly, not with urgency. Their meeting belongs to a future billions of years away. By then, our sun will already be approaching the later chapters of its own life. If anyone could somehow watch this meeting unfold, they might expect an enormous cosmic collision. In reality, the event would be astonishingly graceful. Galaxies are mostly empty space. Although each contains hundreds of billions of stars, the distances between those stars are so immense that direct collisions between individual stars would remain extraordinarily unlikely. Instead, the two galaxies would slowly pass through one another. Their spiral shapes would gently stretch. Gravity would patiently rearrange the paths of countless stars over hundreds of millions of years. It would resemble two great schools of fish quietly swimming through one another beneath calm water, rather than two solid objects crashing together. Eventually, after many slow passages, the two great spirals would become one larger galaxy. Not through violence, but through patience. The stars themselves would continue their quiet journeys, each finding a new path within a larger home. Perhaps there is something deeply reassuring in that image. Even change on the greatest scales does not always require destruction. Sometimes it simply requires time. As you look back one final time, the Milky Way, Andromeda, and Triangulum no longer feel like isolated galaxies. They feel like neighbours sharing one peaceful corner of an unimaginably larger universe. And almost without realising it, another question begins to appear. If galaxies gather into families, what gathers the families? Far beyond the Local Group, the darkness is filled with even greater communities, where hundreds and even thousands of galaxies quietly travel together through the endless night. Our journey, it seems, has only just begun to discover the larger architecture of the cosmos. The local group gradually becomes smaller behind you. Just a little family of galaxies, the Milky Way, Andromeda, Triangulum, dozens of smaller companions. Together they seemed enormous only moments ago. Now they resemble a handful of quiet lights resting within an even greater darkness. It is a gentle reminder that the universe has a habit of changing your sense of scale. Each time you believe you have reached something immense, another, even larger pattern quietly appears. Perhaps this is one of the universe's most peaceful lessons. There is always more, not because what came before was unimportant, but because every discovery belongs to something larger than itself. As your journey continues, countless galaxies begin appearing around you. Some glow with graceful spiral arms, others are smooth, rounded collections of ancient stars. Some seem bright and youthful. Others have settled into quiet old age. Each carries billions of suns. Each holds worlds beyond counting. Yet something curious begins to happen. They do not remain scattered randomly across the darkness. Instead, they slowly gather together, almost like villages growing into towns, or small islands quietly forming an archipelago. Gravity, patient as ever, has been working here too. Over billions of years, galaxies have gently drawn closer to one another, forming enormous communities known as galaxy clusters. Imagine standing high above a mountain range at sunrise. Individual houses disappear from view. Instead, you notice entire towns connected by winding roads. Each town has its own character, its own history, its own quiet rhythm. Galaxy clusters are something like those towns. Each contains hundreds, and sometimes even thousands, of galaxies travelling together through space. Not because they are tied together by invisible ropes, not because they move in perfect harmony, simply because gravity has patiently encouraged them to remain neighbours. One of these great communities lies relatively close to our own. Astronomers call it the Virgo cluster. Despite its gentle name, the Virgo cluster is immense beyond ordinary imagination. Within it, well over 1,000 galaxies quietly share the same vast region of space. Some are elegant spirals. Some are giant elliptical galaxies that have quietly collected stars for unimaginable ages. Others are much smaller, gently orbiting their larger companions. Everywhere you look, stars continue shining. Planets continue circling. Clouds continue giving birth to new generations of suns. Life, if it exists elsewhere, may quietly unfold in places forever beyond our knowing. Yet from this great distance, all those individual stories blend together into one peaceful gathering of light. The farther you travel, the softer details become, not because they disappear, but because your perspective changes. You're learning to see the universe the way migrating birds might view a landscape below. They no longer notice individual gardens. Instead, they recognize valleys, forests, rivers, entire regions gently connected together. Your view of the cosmos is beginning to change in much the same way. As you continue rising higher, another realization quietly arrives. The Virgo cluster is not isolated. It too belongs to something even larger. For many years, astronomers described enormous collections of galaxy clusters as superclusters. The name sounds grand, and for a long time it served well. But as observations improved, scientists noticed something even more interesting. Many of these enormous collections are not separate structures at all. Instead, they appear connected by vast currents of motion, almost as though galaxies are slowly flowing through the universe, like leaves, carried along an impossibly gentle river. Following those motions led astronomers to recognize a much larger region that contains our own galactic neighborhood. It has a beautiful name, Laniakea. The word comes from the Hawaiian language and is often translated as immeasurable heaven or immense heaven. Few names seem more fitting. Laniakea is not a city, not a country, not even a continent. It is more like an entire world of galaxies. Our local group, including the Milky Way, occupies only one tiny corner within this enormous cosmic landscape. Imagine holding a small seashell in your hand while standing beside an endless ocean. The shell is complete, beautiful, worth admiring. Yet it represents only the smallest glimpse of something vastly larger stretching far beyond the horizon. That is what the Milky Way becomes inside Laniakea, a beautiful shell, one among countless others. You might wonder whether all these galaxies are racing wildly through space. The truth is much calmer. Every galaxy possesses its own motion. Some drift slowly toward neighbouring galaxies. Others follow longer, more graceful paths. Across billions of years, gravity quietly shapes those journeys. Nothing feels hurried. Nothing appears chaotic from this great perspective. Instead, the entire region resembles countless autumn leaves floating upon an almost perfectly still lake. Each leaf follows gentle currents. Some slowly approach, others quietly drift apart. The lake itself remains peaceful. There is another comforting thought hidden here. You have now travelled far beyond Earth, far beyond the solar system, beyond neighbouring stars, beyond the Milky Way, beyond even the local group. Yet gravity remains familiar. It has never changed. The same quiet force that allowed an apple to fall toward the ground also helps shape structures containing thousands of galaxies. The scale has become almost impossible to imagine, but the quiet principle remains beautifully simple. The universe seems surprisingly consistent. Its greatest structures grow from the same gentle rules that guide its smallest everyday moments. Perhaps there is reassurance in that. A universe built upon patience feels easier to trust. As your imagination continues drifting across Laniakea, the galaxies begin resembling tiny lanterns scattered across an endless plain. Some gather into bright clusters, others wander between them. Every light contributes to a pattern so immense that no single traveller could ever see all of it at once. Even now, astronomers continue refining their understanding. The boundaries of Laniakea are not walls, they are gentle transitions. The universe does not always draw sharp lines. Instead, it prefers gradual changes, where one great region slowly becomes another without anyone noticing the exact moment the journey continues. That, perhaps, is true of many things. Even sleep rarely arrives all at once. Wakefulness slowly softens. Thoughts grow quieter. The world gently fades into stillness. The universe often behaves in the same patient way. As you take one final look across this immense landscape, another pattern begins revealing itself. The galaxies do not simply gather into clusters. The clusters themselves appear connected by delicate strands stretching across distances almost beyond comprehension. Between those strands lie astonishingly empty regions where very few galaxies exist at all. It is as though the universe has woven itself into an unimaginably vast tapestry, a tapestry of light and silence. Our journey now turns toward those delicate threads, where the largest visible structure in the cosmos quietly stretches across the endless darkness. From the vast landscape of Laniakea, you continue drifting higher still. The galaxies beneath you grow smaller. The brilliant clusters that once seemed impossibly large begin looking like tiny gatherings of light scattered across an endless plain. Nothing disappears, only your perspective changes. The farther you travel, the more the universe begins revealing patterns that were impossible to notice from within. It feels much like climbing a quiet hill above a forest. Among the trees you see only trunks, branches and leaves, but from above winding rivers appear, hidden valleys emerge, entire landscapes quietly reveal themselves. The universe offers the same gentle surprise. For a very long time, astronomers imagined that galaxy clusters were scattered somewhat randomly across space. Some happened to be close together, others drifted farther apart. It seemed like a peaceful collection without much larger design. Then, as telescopes became more capable and careful surveys mapped larger portions of the sky, another picture slowly emerged. It was not dramatic. It was not sudden. It was simply clearer. The galaxies were connected. Not by bridges that could be seen directly, not by glowing roads stretching across space, but by immense, delicate structures that quietly linked one great cluster to another. These structures became known as the cosmic web. The name is wonderfully descriptive. Imagine standing outdoors early on an autumn morning. The air is perfectly still. A single spider's web stretches between two branches. Tiny droplets of dew rest upon its silk, catching the first light of dawn. Most of the web itself remains almost invisible. Only the droplets allow you to glimpse its graceful design. The universe is remarkably similar. The galaxies are like those tiny droplets of dew, bright, visible, easy to notice. The enormous strands connecting them are far more difficult to see, yet they quietly shape the entire pattern. As your imagination gently rises even farther, the cosmic web begins unfolding around you. Great filaments of galaxies stretch across unimaginable distances. Each filament contains thousands upon thousands of galaxies, all slowly moving through time under the patient guidance of gravity. Where several filaments meet, enormous galaxy clusters quietly gather, glowing like lanterns at the crossroads of an endless countryside. Between those luminous strands lie vast regions unlike anything you have encountered before. These are called cosmic voids. The word void might suggest absolute emptiness, but, as you have already learned, during your journey, the universe rarely deals in complete emptiness. Even these enormous regions contain a few scattered galaxies, a little gas, a few drifting particles. Yet compared with the rich filaments surrounding them, they are astonishingly quiet. Imagine looking at a map of countless islands spread across a peaceful ocean. The islands gather into graceful chains. Between them stretches open water, calm and seemingly endless. Neither the islands nor the water exist without the other. Together they create the complete landscape. The cosmic web feels much the same. Its beauty comes not only from where galaxies gather, but also from the immense stillness between them. As you continue drifting, you begin wondering something almost inevitable. What created this astonishing pattern? The answer begins with gravity. That quiet companion has followed you since the very beginning of your journey. Gravity gathered clouds into stars. It guided planets around suns. It shaped galaxies. It encouraged galaxies to gather into clusters. Across billions of years, it continued working patiently, gently strengthening tiny differences that already existed in the young universe. Regions containing just a little more matter slowly attracted even more. Those containing slightly less matter gradually became emptier. The changes were unimaginably slow, yet time, given enough patience, can transform the smallest differences into magnificent structures. There is, however, another quiet participant in this story. Astronomers call it dark matter. The name sometimes sounds mysterious, almost as though it belongs in a story of hidden worlds and impossible discoveries. The reality is gentler. Dark matter does not mean darkness in the ordinary sense. It is not a black fog drifting through space. It is not invisible dust hiding between the stars. Instead, the name simply reflects our present understanding. Whatever dark matter may ultimately be, It does not appear to produce or reflect light the way ordinary matter does. We cannot see it directly, yet we notice its quiet influence through gravity. Imagine walking through a peaceful meadow covered with tall grass. A gentle breeze moves across the field. Although the wind itself remains invisible, the swaying grass reveals where it has been. The breeze is unseen, its influence is not. Dark matter is something like that. Astronomers cannot point a telescope toward it and simply watch it glow. Instead, they observe how galaxies move, how clusters remain together, how light itself bends as it passes through enormous regions of space. Again and again, those observations suggest that something unseen contributes additional gravity throughout the universe. Exactly what dark matter is remains one of modern astronomy's great unanswered questions. There are thoughtful ideas, carefully tested possibilities, yet no final answer has been found. And perhaps that uncertainty deserves to remain exactly as it is. Not every mystery must be hurried toward completion. Sometimes wonder grows best in open space. As the cosmic web stretches farther in every direction, another quiet realization settles over you. The universe is not built like a collection of isolated objects. It behaves more like a living landscape. Every galaxy belongs to a filament. Every filament contributes to a greater pattern. Every cluster participates in an even larger structure. Nothing stands completely alone. Even the great voids help define the shape of everything around them. Light and silence, presence and absence. Together they create the universe we observe. From this remarkable height, the cosmic web resembles delicate threads embroidered across an immeasurable fabric. Not rigid, not perfectly straight. Instead, each filament curves gently, following the patient work of gravity over billions of years. The entire universe seems less like a machine and more like a quiet tapestry, woven one nearly invisible thread at a time. You allow yourself to drift in silence for a while. There is nothing to solve, nothing to memorize, only countless galaxies resting like tiny beads upon delicate strands that stretch farther than imagination comfortably reaches. You are safe. There is nothing to do. Just listen. Just drift. And somewhere, hidden within many of those brilliant galaxies, another familiar presence quietly waits. At their centers rest some of the most extraordinary objects in the universe. Not wandering monsters, not cosmic storms, but ancient, patient hearts around which entire galaxies have gently revolved for billions of years. Our journey now turns toward those quiet centers, where darkness itself helps shape the graceful architecture of the cosmos. The delicate threads of the cosmic web slowly fade into the distance. For a while you simply drift in silence, watching countless galaxies resting like tiny lanterns upon invisible strands. From so far away, each galaxy appears peaceful, whole, complete. Yet now your attention gently turns inward once more. You begin moving toward one single galaxy, not to its bright spiral arms, not to its quiet neighborhoods of stars, but toward its very heart. Every great city has a center, a place around which streets slowly spread, a place that quietly shaped everything that followed. Galaxies are much the same. Hidden deep within the centers of most large galaxies lies something extraordinary. Not a blazing sun, not a cluster of brilliant stars, but an object that gives away almost no light of its own. Astronomers call these remarkable objects supermassive black holes. The words may sound dramatic. For many years, stories have described the black holes as hungry cosmic monsters, endlessly swallowing everything around them. Perhaps that image is understandable. It is also incomplete. The real universe is far quieter. Imagine a peaceful pond on a windless evening. A smooth stone rests beneath the water at its center. The stone makes no sound. It sends no waves racing across the surface. Yet everything floating nearby slowly responds to its presence. Leaves drift. Tiny circles form. The entire pond quietly acknowledges the stone without ever becoming chaotic. A supermassive black hole is something like that hidden stone. It shapes the motions around it, but it does not chase the stars. It simply exists. Earlier in your journey, you briefly met the quiet heart of our own galaxy, Sagittarius, a star. Despite its name, it is not a shining star at all. It is the supermassive black hole resting peacefully at the centre of the Milky Way. For many years, astronomers could not see it directly. Instead, they watched the stars nearby, night after night, year after year, decade after decade. Those stars followed graceful curved paths around something invisible. Imagine watching leaves gently circle an unseen whirlpool beneath calm water. You never observe the whirlpool itself, yet the movement of every leaf quietly reveals that something rests below the surface. The stars near Sagittarius. A star told a similar story. Their elegant orbits revealed an unseen centre possessing an extraordinary amount of mass gathered into an astonishingly small region. Eventually, careful observations became so precise that astronomers could confidently conclude what lay hidden there, not because they saw the black hole itself, but because gravity quietly revealed its presence. There is something deeply satisfying about that. Sometimes the universe is understood not by what it shows, but by the gentle influence it leaves behind. As you continue drifting closer in imagination, another phrase often appears whenever black holes are discussed: the event horizon. It sounds mysterious, almost like the edge of another world. Perhaps there is a gentler way to picture it. Imagine rowing a small boat upon a perfectly calm river. Far ahead lies a broad waterfall. While you remain far away, turning back is easy. Even as the current slowly strengthens, you still have plenty of time to change direction. But eventually, there comes a point where the flowing water becomes too strong. Beyond that invisible line, every gentle stroke of the oars carries you only forward. The event horizon is something like that invisible boundary. It is not a solid wall, it is not a glowing surface. It is simply the distance beyond which nothing, not even light itself, can travel outward again. Beyond that quiet boundary, every path leads deeper inward. Fortunately, space itself is astonishingly spacious. Black holes occupy remarkably little of it. Even the supermassive black hole at the centre of our galaxy is surrounded by enormous regions where stars continue peacefully orbiting for millions upon millions of years. There is no frantic pulling, no endless cosmic vacuum, only gravity quietly guiding motion, just as it has throughout your entire journey. Sometimes a black hole becomes surrounded by gas drifting inward. That gas does not fall straight into darkness. Instead, it begins circling, faster and faster. Much as water forms gentle circles while draining from a quiet basin. As the gas moves closer together, it becomes incredibly warm. So warm that it begins shining brilliantly. Curiously, some of the brightest objects in the observable universe are not the black holes themselves. They are these glowing disks of swirling gas surrounding them. Astronomers call such extraordinary objects quasars. Seen across unimaginable distances, a single quasar can outshine an entire galaxy. That thought may sound almost impossible, yet the brilliance does not come from darkness. It comes from matter, releasing enormous amounts of energy as it gently spirals inward. Even here, the black hole itself remains hidden. The light belongs to everything around it. There is something quietly poetic in that idea. Sometimes the brightest moments do not come from the centre. They arise from the gentle journeys taking place nearby. Long ago, the universe was younger than it is today. During those distant ages, quasars appeared far more frequently. Young galaxies still contained abundant clouds of gas. Their central black holes were actively gathering that material, causing great luminous disks to shine across the cosmos. Today, many galaxies, including our own, have become much calmer. Much of the nearby gas has already settled into stars, planets, or other quiet structures. Sagittarius A star still rests patiently at the Milky Way centre, but it now lives a remarkably peaceful existence compared with the brilliant quasars of the ancient universe. Perhaps even galaxies grow quieter with age. As you watch the calm centre of the Milky Way, another comforting realization slowly settles over you. Black holes are not interruptions to the universe. They are part of its natural rhythm. Stars are born. Stars grow old. Some leave behind neutron stars. Others eventually become black holes. Galaxies slowly gather around supermassive black holes. The great architecture of the cosmos continues forming, not despite these invisible giants, but alongside them. Again and again, your journey returns to the same gentle truth. Gravity is patient. Time is patient. The universe rarely rushes. Even its most extraordinary objects simply participate in an endless dance that has continued for billions of years. You remain suspended above the quiet heart of the Milky Way. Around you, countless stars continue tracing graceful paths that will take millions of years to complete. Nothing feels hurried. Nothing asks for your attention. You are safe. There is nothing to solve, nothing to remember. Only the slow turning of stars around an invisible centre that has patiently guided them for ages beyond imagination. And yet, even beyond these ancient hearts, another quiet mystery waits. Entire galaxies, entire clusters, even the immense regions of Laniakea, all seem to be drifting towards something hidden beyond our view. Not rapidly, not dramatically, but with the same patient motion that has accompanied us since the beginning of our journey. Somewhere ahead lies one of the universe's gentlest unanswered questions. Astronomers have given it a simple, almost humble name: the Great Attractor. As you slowly leave the quiet heart of the Milky Way behind, the countless stars begin blending together once more. Individual galaxies soften into distant lanterns. Clusters become peaceful gatherings of light. The immense threads of the cosmic web quietly stretch across the darkness in every direction. For a little while, nothing seems to change. Everything drifts exactly as you have come to expect. Patiently, gracefully, without hurry. Then, almost imperceptibly, another pattern begins to emerge. The galaxies are moving, not simply around the centres of their own galaxies, not only around the great clusters that gather them together. Many of them appear to be drifting in roughly the same direction. The movement is unimaginably slow. No one watching for a single day, or even for many human lifetimes, could ever notice it with their own eyes. Only by carefully measuring the motions of thousands of galaxies over many years have astronomers begun to recognize the pattern. It is rather like standing beside a wide river on a perfectly calm morning. At first, the surface appears almost completely still. The water reflects the sky so perfectly that it resembles polished glass. But if you quietly watch a floating leaf for a long time, you begin to notice something. The leaf is moving, very gently, almost too slowly to see. Then you notice another leaf, and another. Each one drifts in nearly the same direction. Only then do you realize that beneath the peaceful surface, an invisible current has been flowing all along. The galaxies seem to behave in much the same way. Each follows its own journey. Yet many also participate in a far larger motion. Their paths suggest that something enormous is quietly influencing them. Astronomers eventually gave this mysterious region a simple name: the Great Attractor. It is not the name of a single object. It is not a lone galaxy, nor is it a giant black hole pulling everything inward. Instead, the name describes a region of space toward which many nearby galaxies, including our own local group, appear to be slowly moving. The name itself reflects observation rather than certainty. It describes what we notice, not necessarily what the final explanation will be. There is something wonderfully honest about that. Science does not always begin with answers. Sometimes it begins with careful observation. Sometimes it begins with a quiet question. As you continue drifting toward this mysterious region, you notice another challenge. Looking directly toward the great attractor is surprisingly difficult. Between Earth and that distant destination lies the broad disk of our own Milky Way. Countless stars, great clouds of dust, vast regions of glowing gas. Together they obscure much of what lies beyond. It is a little like trying to study distant mountains while standing inside a dense forest. The trees are beautiful, the forest is fascinating, yet it quietly blocks part of the landscape beyond. Astronomers sometimes refer to this hidden region as the zone of avoidance. The name sounds as though something dangerous lies there. In reality, it simply describes an area where our own galaxy makes observations much more difficult. The universe is not hiding secrets from us. We're simply looking through a particularly crowded window. Fortunately, curiosity is remarkably patient. Astronomers have learned to observe the universe using many different forms of light. Some can pass through clouds of dust more easily than visible light. Little by little, the hidden landscape has begun revealing itself. Not all at once, not completely, but enough to offer gentle clues. Those clues suggest that the great attractor is not one single mysterious object after all. Instead, much of its influence appears to arise from enormous collections of galaxies spread across an immense region of space. Among them lies one especially remarkable gathering known as the Shapley supercluster. This immense concentration of galaxies contains extraordinary amounts of matter. Its gravity quietly contributes to the gentle motions observed across vast portions of the nearby universe. It may not explain every detail, but it appears to be an important part of the larger picture. There is something satisfying about that. Sometimes the answer to a mystery is not one dramatic discovery. Sometimes it is the gradual realization that many quiet influences are working together. The universe often prefers cooperation over simplicity. As you continue floating through this immense landscape, another peaceful thought begins to settle in. Gravity does not issue commands. It offers invitations. Every star, every galaxy, every cluster responds to the gentle shape of space around it. Nothing is forced. Everything simply follows the quiet paths available. Imagine rain falling across a broad hillside. Each tiny drop chooses no direction for itself. It simply follows the gentle curves already present beneath it. Some streams eventually meet. Others wander separately for long distances before quietly joining larger rivers. The motion appears effortless. The landscape quietly guides every journey. Gravity shapes the universe in much the same patient way. The galaxies are not rushing toward the great attractor. They are following the gentle contours of an invisible cosmic landscape, one that has been slowly unfolding since the earliest chapters of the universe. Even now, astronomers continue refining this picture. New observations improve old maps. Fresh discoveries reshape earlier ideas. Questions that once seemed impossible gradually become a little clearer. And sometimes, new mysteries quietly appear in their place. That is not a weakness of science. It is one of its greatest strengths. The willingness to continue listening, to continue observing, to gently replace certainty with deeper understanding whenever the universe offers something new. Perhaps that spirit feels familiar by now. Throughout your journey, you have never hurried toward answers. You have simply drifted, watched, wondered, allowed each new discovery to arrive in its own time. The universe seems to appreciate that kind of patience. As you look outward once more, you realize that the great attractor is not the end of the story. It is simply another reminder that the cosmos remains larger, quieter, and more subtle than any single explanation. Some mysteries have been solved. Others are slowly unfolding. Still others have not yet even been discovered. And somehow, that makes the universe feel even more peaceful. It does not ask you to understand everything tonight. It simply invites you to keep drifting. You are safe. There is nothing to solve. There is nowhere else you need to be. Just listen. Just float. Just allow the immense currents of the cosmos to carry your thoughts as gently as they carry the galaxies themselves. Far beyond these quiet motions lies another horizon, not a place you could ever reach, but a boundary created by time itself, a limit beyond which light has not yet had enough time to arrive. Our journey now turns toward that distant horizon, where we begin exploring the quiet edge of everything we're able to see. The quiet currents that guide entire galaxies slowly fade into the distance. The great attractor becomes just another gentle landmark in the immense landscape behind you. You continue drifting. There is no destination waiting, no finish line to cross, only another widening of perspective. By now, your journey has carried you beyond planets, beyond stars, beyond galaxies, beyond clusters, and beyond the immense tapestry of the cosmic web itself. It feels as though you have reached the edge of everything. And yet, the universe has one more quiet lesson waiting for you. The edge you are approaching is not the edge of space. It is the edge of what light has been able to show us. There is an important difference between those two ideas. Perhaps the easiest way to understand it is to imagine standing on a peaceful beach just after sunrise. A gentle layer of morning mist stretches across the sea. Beyond the mist, the ocean certainly continues. There may be distant islands. There may be quiet waves rolling toward unseen shores. But from where you stand, the mist softly hides everything farther away. The hidden ocean has not disappeared. You simply cannot see beyond the horizon. The observable universe is something like that quiet horizon. It is not the boundary of existence. It is the boundary of what light has had enough time to reach us since the universe first became transparent. Light, despite being the fastest traveller we know, is not instantaneous. It journeys patiently. Every beam crossing the darkness needs time, sometimes only a few seconds, sometimes many years, sometimes billions upon billions of years. Whenever you look into the night sky, you're also looking into the past. The moon appears as it was just a little over 1 second ago. The sun shines upon Earth as it was about 8 minutes ago. The nearby stars greet you as they were years ago. The distant galaxies reveal themselves as they existed millions or even billions of years before human beings ever looked upward. The farther you look, the farther back in time you quietly travel. There is something wonderfully gentle about this idea. The universe never truly shows you its present moment all at once. Instead, every direction becomes a collection of memories carried by light. Imagine receiving letters from distant friends. One letter arrives after several days, another arrives after several months. Another has travelled for many years before reaching your hands. Each letter tells the story of a different moment. Together they create a beautiful collection of memories rather than a single instant. Light behaves much the same way. Every ray arriving at Earth carries a quiet message from another time. As you continue drifting outward in imagination, those messages become older and older. The galaxies grow younger before your eyes. Stars appear earlier in their lives. Entire regions of the universe seem less settled, still gently forming the great structures you have already explored. Eventually you approach a remarkable horizon. Beyond this point, no ordinary visible light from earlier times can yet reach us. Not because something blocks it, not because there is a wall, simply because the universe has existed for a finite amount of time and light has been travelling ever since. It has not yet completed every possible journey. That simple fact creates the observable universe. Everything inside this horizon is, in principle, visible to us if we possess instruments sensitive enough. Everything beyond it remains hidden, not necessarily forever, simply for now. There is another quiet idea waiting here. Many people naturally imagine the observable universe as though it were a great sphere floating inside a larger emptiness. It is easy to picture yourself standing near its centre, yet that image is only a helpful illustration. In reality, every observer anywhere in the universe would experience a similar horizon. Imagine walking through a snowy field during a gentle snowfall. Fog surrounds you equally in every direction. No matter where you walk, the visible horizon moves with you. The horizon is not a physical object resting in the field. It is simply the limit of what can currently be seen. The observable universe behaves in much the same way. Every civilization around another distant galaxy would observe its own quiet horizon, centered upon itself. Each would believe it occupied the middle of its observable universe, and each would be equally correct. The universe, in its quiet generosity, offers every observer their own window into the cosmos. Another gentle question begins to arise. If there is more beyond the observable universe, why can we not simply wait? Will that distant light eventually arrive? The answer is wonderfully subtle. The universe itself continues expanding. This does not mean that galaxies are racing through empty space like ships crossing an ocean. Instead, space itself has been slowly stretching for billions of years. Imagine drawing tiny dots upon the surface of a soft rubber sheet. As the sheet is gently stretched, every dot gradually moves farther from every other dot. The dots themselves need not travel across the surface. The surface itself quietly grows. Space behaves somewhat like that gentle stretching fabric. The farther away a distant region already is, the more that stretching affects the journey of its light. Some places are so unimaginably distant that the expanding universe prevents their newest light from ever reaching us. Not because light has become weaker, not because space refuses to allow it, simply because the distance between us continues growing while the light is still travelling. This thought may seem almost melancholy, yet somehow it feels peaceful instead. The universe does not ask to be completely known. It simply allows us to know the part whose light has patiently arrived. That is already an extraordinary gift. As you float quietly near this horizon of visibility, you notice that nothing marks its location. There is no glowing circle, no final wall, no great sign announcing the edge. The observable universe fades gently into mystery, just as twilight quietly becomes night. The transition is soft, almost impossible to notice, and perhaps that is exactly how the universe prefers its greatest boundaries, not as barriers, but as invitations to wonder. You remain suspended within a vast sphere of ancient light. Every photon surrounding you has travelled an almost unimaginable journey. Every galaxy carries memories older than civilizations. Every faint glow whispers a story that began long before Earth became home to oceans, forests, or living creatures. You're safe. There is nothing to solve, nothing to measure, only light, patiently arriving. And somewhere beyond this quiet horizon lies one of the gentlest possibilities ever imagined. Perhaps our observable universe is not the whole story. Perhaps it is only one quiet region within something even greater, where countless other horizons may quietly exist beyond our sight. That is where our journey will drift next. Session Checklist. This session gently explored the observable universe as the horizon defined by the travel time of light, explaining why it is not the edge of existence. It introduced cosmic look-back time, the idea that every observation is also a glimpse into the past, and softly described the expansion of space using simple imagery, while avoiding technical language and formulas. The primary metaphors were a misty ocean horizon, letters arriving from distant friends, a snowy field surrounded by fog, and a gently stretching sheet carrying tiny dots farther apart. The closing thought naturally prepares the next stage of the journey, where we quietly explore possibilities beyond the observable universe, including cosmic inflation, bubble universes, and the peaceful acknowledgement that some questions remain beautifully unanswered. The quiet horizon of the observable universe slowly settles behind you. There is no wall, no glowing boundary, no final gate marking the edge of existence, only a gradual fading of light into mystery. For a while, you simply remain there, suspended between everything humanity has observed and everything that still waits beyond sight. It is a peaceful place to rest. You are safe. There is nothing to do, nothing to calculate, nothing to prove. Just listen and drift. A quiet question begins to appear. If the observable universe is only the part whose light has reached us, what lies beyond? The most honest answer is beautifully simple. No one knows. That sentence may feel surprisingly comforting. The universe does not owe us certainty. Sometimes it quietly invites us to wonder instead. Scientists have imagined many possibilities. Some are supported by careful mathematics. Some are inspired by observations. Some remain elegant ideas waiting for evidence. Tonight we visit these possibilities not as facts, but as gentle landscapes of thought. The first begins almost at the very beginning, long before stars existed, long before galaxies quietly gathered into graceful spirals, long before atoms combined into planets, oceans, and living things. The universe itself was astonishingly young. Astronomers believe that during its earliest moments, space experienced an extraordinary period of expansion, not an explosion through empty space, not matter flying outward into a waiting universe. Instead, space itself expanded with remarkable speed. Imagine placing a tiny drop of blue ink upon a soft white cloth. Now imagine that the cloth itself slowly stretches in every direction. The ink does not run across the fabric. Instead, the fabric gently grows beneath it. The distances increase naturally. Space may have behaved in a somewhat similar way. During those earliest moments, everything expanded so rapidly that tiny irregularities became gently stretched across unimaginable distances. Those tiny differences would later help gravity gather matter into galaxies, stars, and eventually the peaceful worlds you have been visiting throughout this journey. This early expansion has a scientific name. It is called cosmic inflation. Despite the dramatic word inflation, perhaps it is easier to imagine something much quieter. Picture a single breath slowly filling a delicate sail. The sail does not leap, it simply unfolds, smoothly, gracefully. Its shape becomes larger while remaining connected. The early universe may have unfolded in its own quiet way, although on a scale far beyond everyday imagination. Even today, scientists continue studying this idea with great care. Many observations support important parts of it, yet there are still details that remain uncertain. The universe, as always, keeps a few quiet secrets. As your thoughts continue drifting beyond the observable horizon, another possibility softly appears. Suppose the universe extends much farther than we can ever see, not by a little, but enormously farther. Perhaps so far that our observable universe is only one small region within a much greater expanse. Imagine standing beside an immense forest at dawn. Mist surrounds you in every direction. You can see only a small clearing. Birdsong reaches your ears from beyond the trees. Gentle breezes move unseen branches somewhere in the distance. Although your view is limited, you naturally understand that the forest continues beyond the mist. Our observable universe may be something like that quiet clearing. Not the entire forest, simply the part presently visible. There is another idea that occasionally appears in modern cosmology. It is known as the bubble universe hypothesis. The word bubble may bring to mind playful soap bubbles floating through sunlight. In a gentle way, that image is not entirely unhelpful. Imagine countless bubbles forming upon the surface of a calm pond after a soft spring rain. Each bubble possesses its own delicate boundary. Each reflects the sky a little differently. Each exists peacefully beside countless others. Some physicists have wondered whether something similar might exist on the grandest imaginable scale. Perhaps our observable universe belongs to one much larger cosmic landscape. Perhaps other regions exist beyond our own horizon, each expanding quietly according to its own history. Perhaps there are many such regions, or perhaps there are not. At present, No observation has confirmed this idea. No telescope has looked beyond our observable horizon and discovered another universe waiting there. It remains a thoughtful possibility. One among several ways scientists explore questions that current observations cannot yet answer. And that distinction is important. Science grows strongest when it gently separates evidence from imagination. Wonder invites the question. Evidence guides the answer. The two work best together. Some versions of these ideas suggest another intriguing possibility. If other cosmic regions exist beyond our own, they may not all behave exactly as ours does. The familiar rules governing light, matter, and gravity could, in principle, be different elsewhere. Notice those words. Could, in principle, not are, not must be, only could be. The universe has not yet shown us enough to know. Perhaps everything beyond our horizon follows exactly the same beautiful patterns we have already explored. Perhaps it does not. Either possibility remains open. There is something quietly reassuring about allowing unanswered questions to remain unanswered. You need not rush to fill every silence. Sometimes silence itself is part of the music. As you continue drifting through imagination, the observable universe begins resembling a softly glowing lantern, floating within an endless night. Its light reaches outward only so far. Beyond that glow, mystery gently continues, not threatening, not empty, simply unseen. Perhaps every generation of human beings has lived beside such horizons. Ancient sailors once believed the sea ended where the sky met the water. Later generations crossed those horizons and discovered new continents. Astronomers have crossed many horizons as well. They have discovered galaxies beyond our own. They have mapped the cosmic web. They have listened to ancient light from the early universe. Each discovery revealed that the cosmos was larger than previously imagined. There is every reason to believe that future generations will continue discovering new horizons, not because today's knowledge is wrong, but because curiosity itself continues travelling. That gentle journey may never truly end. And perhaps that is one of the universe's quietest gifts, not certainty, but endless invitation. You remain suspended near the edge of everything humanity can presently observe. Behind you lies a universe filled with stars, galaxies, quiet currents of gravity and ancient light. Ahead lies possibility, not yet illuminated, not yet understood, yet somehow peaceful all the same. You are safe. There is nowhere you need to go. No mystery you must solve tonight. Just drift. Just breathe. Just allow the quiet horizon to remain exactly as it is. Because beyond every horizon, whether in the universe or within ourselves, there is always room for one more gentle question. And perhaps the gentlest question of all is this. If the universe has no final edge, what does infinity truly feel like? The quiet horizon slowly fades behind you. Not because you have crossed it. No one can. It simply becomes another gentle memory in your journey. Like the stars you first visited long ago, you have travelled in imagination farther than any spacecraft, farther than any human being, beyond the familiar warmth of the sun, beyond neighbouring stars, beyond the graceful spirals of galaxies, beyond the delicate threads of the cosmic web, beyond even the oldest light we are able to observe. And still, there is no wall, no edge, no final place where the universe quietly ends. That realization brings you to one of the oldest questions people have ever asked. What if space never ends? It is a question that has accompanied humanity for thousands of years. Children have wondered about it while watching stars appear one by one after sunset. Philosophers have reflected upon it beneath quiet skies. Astronomers continue asking it with ever more powerful telescopes. The question remains wonderfully alive, not because no one has searched, but because the universe has not yet revealed a complete answer. There are several possibilities. One is that space may indeed be infinite. If so, then no matter how far you travelled, there would always be more. Another galaxy, another quiet region of darkness, another horizon waiting gently beyond the last. Another possibility is that space may be finite while still having no edge. At first, that sounds impossible. How could something have no edge if it is not endless? Perhaps a familiar image can help. Imagine a tiny ant walking across the surface of a perfectly smooth globe. The little traveller continues forward without ever reaching a cliff, without finding a corner, without arriving at a final boundary. Eventually, after a very long journey, it would quietly return to where it began. From the ant's perspective, there was no edge at all. Some scientific models suggest that the universe could possess a similarly gentle kind of geometry, not because it resembles an ordinary sphere floating through something larger, but because space itself may curve in ways that are difficult for everyday experience to imagine. Whether this is true remains an open question. The universe has not yet whispered its final answer, and that is perfectly all right. There is something peaceful about allowing reality to remain larger than our understanding. As your thoughts continue drifting, you notice something curious. Perhaps the universe itself is not asking you to picture infinity perfectly. Perhaps it simply invites you to become comfortable with not reaching the end. Imagine standing beside the ocean at twilight. The water stretches toward the horizon until sea and sky quietly become one. You know the ocean continues, yet you do not need to see every wave to appreciate its beauty. The unseen distance does not diminish the shoreline beneath your feet. It gently enriches it. The universe often feels much the same. You need not know everything to feel wonder. You need not see every galaxy to belong among them. You need not reach the end for your journey to have meaning. There is another quiet lesson hidden inside enormous distances. Throughout your voyage, your sense of size has slowly changed. At first, Earth felt immense. Then it became a small blue world. The solar system appeared vast. Then it became one quiet neighbourhood among hundreds of billions of stars. The Milky Way seemed unimaginably large. Then it joined a family of galaxies. That family became one small region within Laniakea. Laniakea itself became one luminous pattern inside the cosmic web. Again and again, what once seemed limitless gently found its place inside something greater. Perhaps our own worries sometimes behave in a similar way. When viewed very closely, they can seem enormous. They fill the horizon of our thoughts. Yet with a little distance, with a little time, they often become one small part of a much larger landscape. The universe does not erase our concerns. It simply reminds us that perspective is another kind of light. You continue floating through the immense stillness. There is no wind, no sound, only ancient light crossing unimaginable distances with quiet determination. Every photon has travelled patiently for millions, sometimes billions, of years before gently arriving at its destination. None of them hurried. None became discouraged by the journey. They simply continued. There is comfort in such steady persistence. Time itself begins feeling different here. On Earth, a day quietly follows another. Morning becomes afternoon. Evening becomes night. The rhythm is familiar, comforting. Yet beyond galaxies, time seems almost to breathe more slowly. Stars spend billions of years quietly shining. Galaxies complete graceful rotations over hundreds of millions of years. The larger structures of the universe evolve so gradually that entire civilizations appear and disappear in what would seem like a single quiet moment. None of this makes human life smaller. Instead, it makes every ordinary moment quietly precious. A conversation, a sunrise, the sound of rain upon a window, the warmth of someone's hand. Against the backdrop of cosmic time, these gentle experiences become extraordinary precisely because they are brief. The universe teaches patience. Life teaches presence. Together they create something quietly beautiful. As your journey continues, the darkness no longer feels empty. It feels spacious, welcoming, full of possibility rather than absence. Perhaps that is one of the greatest gifts the night sky has always offered. Not fear of the unknown, but room for the imagination to rest. You realize that despite traveling so unimaginably far, you have never truly been separate from home. Every atom within your body was quietly shaped inside ancient stars. Every breath connects you to the same universe that formed galaxies long before Earth existed. The light reaching your eyes tonight began journeys that started before human history. And still, somehow, everything belongs to the same quiet story. You belong to it as well. Not because you have explored every mystery, not because every question has been answered, but because you have always been part of this vast unfolding universe. You are safe. There is nothing more to seek tonight, nothing left to solve. Just breathe slowly, just drift gently. Just rest within the comforting thought that whether space is endless, gently curved, or something even stranger than we have yet imagined, the universe has carried stars, galaxies, worlds, and quiet travellers with infinite patience. And now, after wandering farther than imagination can comfortably measure, it is time to turn ever so gently toward home. Not because the journey is ending, but because every peaceful voyage eventually becomes a quiet return. For a long while, you simply remain where you are. There is nowhere farther you need to travel tonight. The universe stretches quietly beyond imagination. The observable horizon rests softly behind you. Countless possibilities continue beyond it, unseen and unanswered. The great tapestry of galaxies extends farther than thought can comfortably follow. You do not try to understand all of it. You simply allow yourself to rest within it. You are safe. There is nothing to do. Just listen. Just drift. Then, almost without noticing, your journey begins to change. Not with a sudden turn, not with a feeling of rushing home, only with the gentle realization that every peaceful journey eventually becomes a quiet return. Far ahead, a faint shimmer begins to gather. The delicate threads of the cosmic web slowly reappear. They stretch across the darkness like fine strands of silk touched by the softest morning light. From this distance, they seem less like structures and more like gentle brush strokes across an endless canvas. You watch them for a while, remembering how impossible they once seemed. Now they feel strangely familiar, not because they have become smaller, but because you have learned how patiently the universe unfolds. As you continue drifting, the great region of Laniakea quietly comes into view once more. Its countless galaxies glow like scattered lanterns resting across a peaceful valley after sunset. Nothing has changed. Every galaxy continues its patient journey. Every cluster quietly follows gravity's gentle guidance. The immense currents you once wondered about continue flowing with extraordinary calm. You realize that the universe never hurried while you were away. It simply continued being itself. Perhaps that is one of its quietest lessons. Life does not ask everything to happen at once. The stars never rush to rise. Galaxies never hurry through space. Even light, the fastest traveller we know, patiently accepts that every journey takes time. You continue floating closer. The local group slowly separates itself from the surrounding galaxies. Andromeda appears once again, graceful, silent, still patiently approaching the Milky Way across billions of years. Triangulum quietly accompanies its larger neighbours, glowing with the same gentle dignity you remember. Together they no longer feel like distant strangers. They feel like familiar companions encountered earlier along a peaceful walk. Soon the graceful spiral of the Milky Way fills your view once more. Its broad arms curl softly through the darkness like streams of silver mist. You remember wandering through its quiet neighbourhoods, the young stars learning to shine, the ancient giants slowly growing old, the lonely rogue planets travelling without a sunrise, the invisible heart where countless stars patiently circle Sagittarius, a star. Every part of the galaxy continues its quiet rhythm. Nothing waited for your return. Nothing paused your absence. The universe carries on gently, whether watched or unwatched. And somehow that thought feels deeply comforting. You drift farther inward. The familiar Orion arm appears once again. One peaceful neighborhood among hundreds of billions of stars. Then, almost hidden among countless points of light, you find a small, ordinary yellow star. There is nothing dramatic about it. It does not outshine its neighbors. It does not dominate the galaxy. From here, it is simply one quiet sun among many. And yet, it is home. Around that modest star, several planets continue their patient orbits. One of them is wrapped in gentle clouds. Blue oceans quietly reflect sunlight. White swirls drift across the atmosphere. Brown mountains rise above green valleys. It's astonishing how small Earth now appears. Earlier in your journey, leaving Earth felt like leaving everything. Now you see something different. Earth was never separated from the universe. It has always been one beautiful expression of it. Every mountain was built from atoms forged inside ancient stars. Every ocean contains elements born long before the sun itself existed. Every tree quietly gathers light that began its journey deep within the heart of our nearest star. Even your own body carries the history of the cosmos. The calcium in your bones, the oxygen you breathe, the iron flowing through your blood, the carbon woven through every living cell. All of them were patiently created inside stars that lived and faded billions of years before Earth was ever formed. Throughout this journey, you searched for your place in the universe. Perhaps the answer has been quietly waiting from the beginning. You were never separate from it. You have always belonged. You're one small expression of a story that began long before human history and will continue long after today's stars have gently faded. There is no need to feel small because the universe is vast. There is also no need to feel large. Simply belonging is enough. You continue drifting closer. The solar system grows familiar again. The quiet orbit of Earth. The silver moon faithfully circling nearby. Beyond them, the great planets continue their patient journeys, exactly as they did when you first left them behind. Nothing has changed. Only your perspective. You descend a little farther. The blue world slowly fills your view. Clouds drift peacefully above the oceans. Night gently spreads across one hemisphere, while morning quietly awakens another. Cities sparkle like tiny constellations scattered across the surface. Somewhere below, countless people are sleeping. Some are watching the stars. Some are quietly wondering the very questions that carried you across this long journey. You drift gently through the atmosphere. Clouds part without a sound. The familiar world rises to meet you. Forests breathe softly beneath the night. Rivers continue their endless conversations with the sea. A cool breeze brushes across quiet fields. Somewhere gentle rain taps against a window. Somewhere else waves fold themselves upon an empty shore. Life continues its patient rhythm. You return not to the beginning, but to the place that has quietly changed because you have changed, not through knowledge alone, but through perspective. The universe has not become smaller. Earth has not become larger. Instead, both have found their place within the same peaceful story. Now your journey grows even quieter. The planet gently fades. The room where you began quietly returns. Perhaps you notice the softness beneath you, the steady rhythm of your breathing, the gentle weight of your blanket, the quiet sounds surrounding your evening. These ordinary moments no longer feel ordinary. They feel connected to everything you have seen. The same universe that shapes galaxies also cradles this quiet night. The same laws that guide ancient stars also guide every gentle breath. The same patient passage of time that carries galaxies through billions of years quietly carries you toward peaceful sleep. There is nowhere else you need to travel tonight. You are already home. You're already safe. The stars will continue shining. The galaxies will continue drifting. The universe will continue unfolding with infinite patience, and as your thoughts become softer and quieter and lighter, you may simply allow yourself to drift, ever so gently, into sleep.